Bonded to a being of legends, he was the first human brave enough asterisk. The crimson suns of Collis Prime cast long shadows across the landing platform as Lieutenant Jake Morrison stepped off the transport vessel. The air tasted metallic and heavy, nothing like Earth's sweet atmosphere. Around him, his fellow Marines whispered nervously about their mission. They were here to establish diplomatic relations with the Collis, a warrior race that stood 12 feet tall and possessed strength that could crush steel with bare hands. "Remember your briefing," Captain Torres called out to the assembled squad. "The Collis respect only strength and courage. Show weakness, and this mission fails before it begins." Jake nodded, his pulse quickening as he saw the delegation of Collis warriors approaching. Their leader was unmistakable. Gareth the Unconquered, they called him. His massive frame was covered in ritual scars, each one telling a story of battles. One. His eyes glowed amber in the dying light, and his presence commanded absolute silence from everyone around him. The human delegation had been specifically warned about Gareth. No alien had ever successfully bonded with him in their sacred trial of unity. The Collis believed that only through this ancient ritual could true understanding between species be achieved. Dozens of diplomats from various worlds had tried and failed, many barely surviving the experience. "Which of you will face the trial?" Gareth's voice rumbled like distant thunder, his words translated through their universal communicators. His gaze swept over the humans, lingering on each face as if measuring their worth. The Marines exchanged uncertain glances. This wasn't part of their official mission parameters. They were soldiers, not diplomats trained for alien bonding rituals. Captain Torres stepped forward, but his movement lacked conviction. The weight of responsibility seemed to crush down on everyone present. Jake felt something stir within him as he watched Gareth's expression grow disappointed. The mighty warrior's shoulders seemed to sag slightly, as if he had grown tired of beings who approached him with fear rather than respect. There was something in those amber eyes that reminded Jake of his grandfather, a veteran who had fought in Earth's last great war. The same look of someone who had seen too much, who carried burdens that others couldn't understand. "I will," Jake said, stepping forward before he could second-guess himself. The reaction was immediate. His fellow Marines tried to grab his arm. Captain Torres hissed warnings, and the Collis warriors murmured among themselves in their guttural language. But Gareth's eyes lit up with something Jake hadn't expected to see: hope. "You are young," Gareth observed, circling Jake like a predator studying prey. "Small. Your bones would break like twigs in my hands. Why do you volunteer for something that will likely kill you?" Jake looked up at the towering alien, feeling the weight of every gaze upon him. "Because someone has to try. Because I see in your eyes the same lowliness I've seen in warriors on my own world. You're not looking for someone to defeat you. You're looking for someone who understands what it means to carry the weight of others' expectations." Gareth stopped circling. For a moment, the only sound was the wind whistling through the alien architecture surrounding them. Then, slowly, the great warrior extended one massive hand toward Jake. "The trial begins at dawn," Gareth announced. "Prepare yourself, small warrior. Tomorrow, you will face challenges that have broken beings twice your size." As the Collis delegation departed, Captain Torres pulled Jake aside. "Are you insane? Do you have any idea what you've just volunteered for?" Jake watched Gareth's retreating figure, noting how the other Collis warriors kept their distance even from their own leader. "I volunteered to try something that others were too afraid to attempt. Sometimes that's what it takes to build bridges between worlds." The night ahead would be long, filled with preparation and doubt. But for the first time since arriving on Collis Prime, Jake felt like they had a real chance at success. Dawn came too, quickly on Collis Prime. The twin suns painted the sky in shades of blood and gold as Jake stood in the center of the trial. Arena. Thousands of Khalis warriors filled the stands, their voices creating a thunderous roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the ancient structure. Gareth stood across from him, no longer the diplomatic figure from yesterday. Here, in this sacred space, he was every inch the legendary warrior who had never been defeated. His scarred skin gleamed with ritual oils, and ceremonial weapons hung from his belt like trophies of countless victories. The first trial tests your body's limits, Gareth explained, his voice carrying easily across the arena. You must endure what I endure. Feel what I feel. Only then can we begin to understand each other. Jake had spent the night studying what little information existed about Khalis bonding rituals. The trials were designed to push participants beyond their breaking point, to strip away all pretense and reveal the true nature beneath. Many who survived described it as the most intense experience of their lives. The first challenge appeared. Simple enough. Jake had to carry a massive stone block across the arena, while Gareth carried an identical one. The catch was that the stone was designed to grow heavier with each step, responding to the carrier's stress and fatigue by increasing its gravitational pull. Jake lifted his block, immediately feeling its tremendous weight. His muscles strained as he took his first step, then another. Beside him, Gareth moved with surprising grace, despite carrying what must have been an enormous load. The Khalis warrior's breathing remained steady, controlled. Do not focus on the weight, Gareth called out as they walked. Focus on why you carry it. Purpose gives strength that muscle cannot provide. By the halfway point, Jake's arms were screaming in agony. Sweat poured down his face, and his legs threatened to buckle with each step. The stone seemed to weigh as much as a small vehicle now, its surface growing warm against his skin. He could hear the crowd's reactions, some cheering, others making sounds that were probably equivalent to betting on when he would collapse. But Jake thought about his grandfather's stories, about soldiers who carried wounded comrades across battlefields, when logic said it was impossible. He thought about the look in Gareth's eyes the day before, the loneliness of someone who had never found an equal. Each step became an act of will rather than strength. Why do you continue? Gareth asked, his own breathing now showing signs of strain. Your body has reached its limits. Your people will not think less of you for stopping. Because, Jake gasped between steps, quitting means we never find out what's possible. Something shifted in Gareth's expression. The great warrior was studying Jake with new interest, as if seeing something he hadn't expected. They were nearing the finish line now, but Jake's vision was starting to blur. His entire body shook with the effort of each movement. Then, just 10 feet from the goal, Jake stumbled. The stone slipped from his grasp and crashed to the ground with a sound like thunder. The arena fell silent. Jake dropped to his knees, certain he had failed not just himself, but his entire species. Gareth set down his own stone and walked over to where Jake knelt. The crowd held its breath, waiting to see how the unconquered would react to failure. Instead of anger or disappointment, Gareth extended his hand to help Jake stand. You carried the stone farther than any being who was not born Khalis, Gareth said loud enough for the entire arena to hear. But more important, you carried it with purpose. That is the lesson of the first trial. Jake accepted the help, standing on shaking legs. Around them, the Khalis crowd was making sounds he couldn't interpret. But from Gareth's slight smile, Jake sensed approval rather than mockery. The first trial is complete, Gareth announced. Tomorrow, we test not your body, but your mind. Rest well, small warrior. The challenges ahead will make today seem simple. As Jake was escorted from the arena, he realized something profound had changed. He had failed to complete the challenge, yet somehow he had succeeded in earning Gareth's respect. The second trial took place in a chamber deep beneath the Khalis capital city. Unlike the public spectacle of the arena, this space was intimate and sacred. Ancient symbols covered the walls, glowing with soft bioluminescence that cast shifting patterns across the stone surfaces. Jake sat cross-legged on the floor opposite Gareth, a crystalline device placed between them. The mind bridge, as it was called, would link their consciousness directly. Through it, they would experience each other's memories, fears, and deepest thoughts. Many participants never recovered from the psychological trauma of such intimate mental contact. The mind bridge shows truth without filter, Gareth explained, his massive hands resting gently on the crystal. You will see why I'm called the Unconquered. You will witness battles, death, choices that haunt me. And I will see your human experiences, your fears, your motivations. Are you prepared for such vulnerability? Jake placed his own hands on the crystal, feeling its surface warm to his touch. As prepared as anyone can be for having their mind laid bare. The moment their mental barriers dropped, Jake was overwhelmed by the flood of sensation. He was suddenly experiencing life through Gareth's eyes, feeling the weight of the warrior's memories as if they were his own. He witnessed Gareth as a young warrior, smaller than his peers, but driven by an unquenchable need to prove himself. Jake felt the pain of every scar, the weight of every decision that led to victory at the cost of others' lives. He experienced the loneliness of being so powerful that others feared to approach, the burden of being seen as a weapon rather than a person. Most devastating of all, Jake saw Gareth's failed bonding attempts. Dozens of aliens had tried to connect with him, only to flee in terror when they glimpsed the depth of violence and tragedy that shaped the warrior's existence. Each failure had added another layer to Gareth's isolation, but the connection worked. Both ways, Gareth was simultaneously experiencing Jake's memories. The Colossus warrior saw Jake's childhood on Earth, his decision to join the military, not for glory, but to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. He witnessed Jake's losses in combat, his moments of fear and doubt, but also his unwavering commitment to his comrades. You have killed, Gareth's mental voice observed, tinged with surprise. Yet you carry no darkness from it. How is this possible? Through the link, Jake shared his understanding. Every life I took was to save others. The weight isn't in the act itself, but in the meaning behind it. Killing for conquest is different from killing to protect. Gareth's consciousness recoiled. Slightly, not from rejection, but from recognition. You understand the difference between necessary violence and cruelty. So few beings make this distinction. The session continued for hours, their minds intertwining as barriers dissolved completely. Jake experienced Gareth's tactical genius, his deep love for his people, and his desperate desire to find someone who could see past his fearsome reputation. In return, Gareth witnessed Jake's compassion, his ability to find hope in desperate situations, and his genuine curiosity about other species. When they finally separated, both were changed. Jake felt as if he had lived through centuries of warfare and triumph. Gareth looked at him with eyes that held wonder rather than judgment. No being has ever remained conscious through a complete mind meld with me, Gareth said softly. Most flee after witnessing my first battle memory. You not only stayed, you offered understanding instead of judgment. Jake wiped tears from his eyes, overwhelmed by the emotional intensity of what they had shared. You're not a monster, Gareth. You're a guardian who's had to make impossible choices. Every human soldier understands that burden. The Colossus warrior stood slowly, his massive frame seeming somehow less intimidating now that Jake had glimpsed the person within. Tomorrow brings the final trial, the test of unity. If we succeed, we will be bonded for life, sharing strength and understanding across species. If we fail, we won't fail, Jake said with quiet confidence. We've already proven we can trust each other with our deepest truths. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. For the first time since Jake had met him, Gareth smiled. It transformed his entire appearance, revealing the warmth that existed beneath the warrior's facade. The final trial chamber was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The circular room seemed to exist partially outside normal space, its walls showing glimpses of star fields and distant galaxies. At the center stood a pillar of pure energy, crackling with power that made the air itself hum with potential. The Unity trial, Gareth explained as they approached the pillar together, requires us to merge our life forces temporarily. We become one being, sharing not just thoughts, but our very essence. If our bond is true, we emerge stronger. If it is false, the energy will tear us apart. Jake studied the pillar, feeling its power wash over him in waves. Around the chamber, Khalas elders watched silently, their ancient faces showing the weight of witnessing countless such trials. Most ended in failure. Some ended in death. What exactly happens if we succeed? Jake asked, though he suspected the answer would be beyond his current understanding. We become bonded, Gareth replied, forever linked across any distance. Your victories become mine, your pain becomes mine, and mine yours. It is the deepest connection possible between thinking beings. Many attempt it for political advantage. We attempt it because we have found true understanding. Jake nodded, remembering everything they had shared during the mental trial. The trust they had built felt solid, unshakable. Then let's finish what we started. They moved to opposite sides of the energy pillar. Gareth placed his massive hands against the crackling surface, and Jake did the same. Immediately, Jake felt the energy rushing through him, seeking to understand his very essence. The sensation was indescribable. Jake felt himself dissolving, his consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of his physical form. But instead of fear, he felt Gareth's presence joining with his own, their combined awareness creating something entirely new. For a moment, they were truly one being. Jake experienced the universe through Khalas' senses, feeling the electromagnetic fields that surrounded every living thing, understanding the deep connections between all matter and energy. Simultaneously, Gareth experienced human perception, the remarkable ability to find beauty and meaning in the smallest details of existence. Their combined consciousness touched something vast and ancient, the collective memory of every successful bonding in Khalas history. Jake saw glimpses of other species who had achieved this unity, felt the echo of their combined achievements and discoveries. But then something went wrong. The energy began to fluctuate wildly, threatening to tear their merged consciousness apart. Jake felt Gareth's panic, realized that their species differences were creating instabilities in the bonding process. Hold on, Jake's mental voice reached across their shared awareness. Don't fight the differences. Embrace them. Instead of resisting the chaos, Jake opened himself completely to it, accepting the discord as part of the process. Gareth followed. His led, and suddenly the fluctuations began to stabilize. Their differences weren't weaknesses to overcome, but strengths to celebrate. The energy pillar blazed with brilliant light, and Jake felt their consciousness snap back into separate bodies. But the connection remained, stronger than ever. He could sense Gareth's thoughts and emotions as clearly as his own, feel the warrior's strength flowing through him, even as his own determination bolstered Gareth's resolve. Around them, the Khalas elders were making sounds of amazement. Several were prostrating themselves, as if witnessing something sacred and unprecedented. "It is done," Gareth said, his voice filled with wonder. "We are bonded." The first successful human Khalas unity in recorded history. Jake felt the truth of it resonating through every cell in his body. They were still separate individuals, but connected by bonds deeper than friendship or alliance. They had become something greater than the sum of their parts. "What happens now?" Jake asked, marveling at the new sensations flowing through the bond. Gareth smiled, and Jake felt the warrior's joy as if it were his own. Now we show the galaxy what humans and Collis can accomplish together. Your species' ingenuity combined with our strength, your curiosity paired with our experience. The possibilities are limitless. As they left the trial chamber together, Jake realized they had achieved something far greater than diplomatic success. They had proven that understanding between species wasn't just possible, but could create bonds stronger than any forged by politics or necessity. 3 months after the successful bonding, Jake and Gareth stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned vessel Unity's Dream, the first ship designed jointly by human and Collis engineers. The hybrid technology represented breakthrough achievements that neither species could have accomplished alone. Long-range sensors are detecting the Void Fleet, reported Lieutenant Commander Patricia Wells, Jake's former squad mate, who now served as the ship's tactical officer. 50 ships moving toward the Kepler colonies. Jake felt Gareth's battle instincts surge through their bond as the warrior analyzed the threat. The Void Fleet was a notorious group of raiders who had terrorized this sector for years, always striking isolated colonies before disappearing into deep space. Traditional response would be to call for reinforcements, Gareth mused, his tactical experience flowing through their connection. But they will be gone before help arrives. Then we don't use traditional responses, Jake replied, his human creativity sparking ideas that Gareth's military knowledge helped refine. We use what they don't expect. The plan they developed would have been impossible for either species to execute alone. It required human innovation combined with Collis' physical capabilities, coordinated through their unique mental bond. As Unity's Dream approached the Void Fleet, Jake and Gareth stood together in the ship's command center, their consciousness linked more deeply than ever before. Through their bond, they could coordinate the hybrid crew with unprecedented precision, each team member receiving instructions perfectly tailored to their species' strengths. "They're hailing us," reported Communications Officer Vex, a Collis warrior who had volunteered to serve under Gareth's command. "Demanding our surrender. Open the channel," Jake ordered. When the Void Fleet commander appeared on screen, his arrogant sneer faltered slightly at seeing a human and Collis standing as equals. "I am Commander Razik of the Void Fleet," Alien Raider declared. "Surrender your cargo and passengers, and we might let your ship escape intact." Jake and Gareth exchanged a look that needed no words. Through their bond, they had already coordinated their response. "This is Lieutenant Jake Morrison of Earth and Gareth the Bonded of Collis Prime," Jake announced. "We're here to offer you one chance to withdraw peacefully." Razik's laughter was harsh and mocking. "A single ship against our entire fleet? Your bonding has made you both insane." The attack came swiftly, but Jake and Gareth were ready. Through their shared awareness, they directed Unity's Dream in maneuvers that should have been impossible. The ship moved like a living thing, dodging weapons fire while launching precise counterstrikes that disabled rather than destroyed. Impossible. Razik snarled as his ships began falling back. "How are you anticipating our every move?" The answer was their bond. Jake's intuitive understanding of patterns, combined with Gareth's tactical experience, created a form of battle awareness that transcended normal military strategy. They weren't just commanding a ship. They were becoming one with it, feeling its systems as extensions of their shared consciousness. The battle ended with the Void Fleet in full retreat, their reputation for invincibility shattered by a single vessel crewed by supposedly incompatible species. News of the victory spread quickly throughout the galaxy. The successful human-Collis bonding had been diplomatic curiosity. The defeat of the Void Fleet made it a legend. Within weeks, representatives from dozens of species were requesting meetings, eager to explore the possibilities of similar partnerships. Jake found himself at the center of a new age of interspecies cooperation. His bonding with Gareth serving as proof that understanding could triumph over fear. Did you ever imagine it would lead to this? Jake asked as they watched another diplomatic vessel dock with Unity's dream. Gareth's contentment flowed through their bond, mixed with anticipation for the challenges ahead. I dreamed of finding one being who could see past my reputation. Instead, we have become the foundation for an entirely new form of galactic cooperation. Jake smiled, feeling the truth of Gareth's words resonate through their connection. They had started as two individuals from vastly different worlds, brought together by necessity and courage. They had become something unprecedented, living proof that the barriers between species existed only in the mind. As Unity's dream set course for their next mission, Jake and Gareth stood together on the bridge, their bond strong and their purpose clear. They were no longer just human in Colossus. They were partners, explorers, and pioneers of a future where understanding could overcome any obstacle. The legend of their bonding would inspire generations, but for Jake and Gareth, it was just the beginning of an extraordinary journey among the stars. The end.